Welcome to the 12th special edition of the T-ROH show. Folks, we've had some things come out about the past, and I'm kind of glad that they brought this stuff out, so now we can clean the record up. Okay, so John's on the call. This is your host, Keith.
Good morning, folks. We're going to enjoy this and have some fun.
You're going to like this one. So some things that come to mind or have been sent to me, and they're being posted again by a Steve Bioki, I think he calls his name or whatever, and he's calling the government of the United States of America 1781 a fraud. Now, he can say whatever he wants about me. I don't care. But you start talking about the government as being a fraud, you got an issue. Because it's not a fraud. You're actually attacking your own country. But we'll go through this one at a time so everybody will see what he's putting on there. And he's going to say, because he also said, prove me wrong. Okay, we'll prove you wrong, Steve. We're going to prove you wrong right now. All right. He brings up some old stuff. Let me show you what happened. You have to understand what was going on back then. Back in the day, and after I did a cancellatura of foreign instruments in 1996, I pretty much just went quiet. I was for 10 years. I lived on my own, tried to live off the land that I had, and found out that I was actually in more slavery than anything else. In other words, my freedom had been diminished after that. And I studied the Bibles. I studied about 4 or 5 Bibles. Even read the Quran. Read a bunch of stuff. Okay, went through. I used to read the U.S. Code like 2.5 hours a night, and did this for 10 years. We used to do some experimenting with the courts in certain cases and things like that. It was just a few people. It wasn't a bunch of people. It wasn't even a group. Just a couple of people getting together and doing some things. I rode around with my own tags on the car for 10 years. And I didn't know, because we didn't have internet, I didn't know the cancellatura of foreign instruments had gotten so popular and was all over the internet. I didn't know that because I wasn't on the internet at the time. So around 2006, I get pulled over, get screwed with, okay, calling me a UCC group. And I go, what the hell's a UCC group? Because I had never studied the UCC at the time. This was 2006. And I went into their, I was in their jail for, I guess about 15 hours or so. This was in Louisville, Kentucky. And I had done a cancellatura, so I had nothing to do with this, and I was basically not working within their system. And the cop never showed up to the court at the time. He just didn't show up, which really pissed off the judge. This was the next Monday that I went in. And I had told her, I said, I did a cancellatura of foreign instruments, and I showed them and all this other stuff. And she still tried to arraign me. And I told her, I said, look, that account's been closed and canceled. I didn't know at the time what I was actually saying. Just keep in mind, this was in 2006. That was a long time ago. To me, this feels like 50 years ago, okay? So when I was in the jail, I realized how messed up the jail was. At the time, I was very anti-insurance, accepting benefits from the state. I had a completely different frame of mind than I do now. And all said and done, they never tried to, they tried to get me back in there. I didn't ever go, blah, 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 blah. So it ended up a bench warrant, and I hadn't heard anything. I didn't hear anything for for a while. And what was going on back then, and I started talking to, now remember, we didn't have a lot of cell phones as far as the unlimited talking. It was all long distance, and it was like 25 cents a minute back then. And I started talking to a guy named Laszlo. And here was some of the things that they're posting. I'm just gonna put out there. He says a follow-up to the Keith Edward Living Way, aka Livernois. So I live in Steve's mind rent-free, by the way. Just to let everyone know, I live in his head rent-free. It says, in the government of the United States of America, 1701, everything I have posted in regarding this scam can be found online. Do your own research and prove me wrong. Well, we're going to prove you wrong, Steve. Okay? Just remember, we're going to prove you wrong. Also notice he was running a group called Sovereigns Without Subjects, and this is after he said sovereigns were terrorists. I never said sovereigns were terrorists. I said guru groups have issues, and they're being looked upon as terrorists, and yes, they are doing some serious violations. But I never said sovereigns were terrorists, because I believe a sovereign out of the law of nations is something completely different. I don't believe people are sovereign, okay? So it comes to Keith is still searching for donations, $50 to $30 there. So let's go to Godlike Productions. I'm still searching for donations. Okay. Now, this was done when I did the Great Registry. And when was this posted? Maybe I could put this up. I'm still looking for donations. Guys, this was 7/20/2008. This was a long time ago. How am I still looking for donations? And what I did was I brought back the Great Registry. Okay? And people were sending, see, people had to send things in the mail back then. Still back then, and I keep in mind when sending any flash drive or disk, if you want it returned to you. So I said, send me an envelope with a return address envelope with a stamp on it. And believe it or not, I still have some of these records. And they wanted to get into the Great Registry. Now, we didn't know squat about what the Great Registry actually could do. We thought it was the Federal Registry took it over at the time, but I didn't realize that it was an actual political registry. That's what it was for back in the day. But now that we have more and more access to internet, I learned quite a bit more about what great registries were, and here it is right here. It's still here, so no fraud going on. And is teaching us how to, it says, now Keith Edwards is teaching us how to take back the land, and with it our sovereignty. Some will use this information to do some good for the betterment of us all, but some will go on complaining and rattling their chains. It was the same thing that was going on back then. Same thing that Steve's doing now was going on back then. It says, and then we'll bring up Sam Kennedy, okay? His guest tonight on a Republic Broadcasting was historic broadcast. These guys are helping lead the way to a new paradigm based on ageless principles that still stand to this day. Some here complain about the Bible, Christ, and really cannot figure out the bigger picture because you have been deceived. Some preachers have contributed to this. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. And this guy was bumped. And it says, I'm very interested in what Keith Edwards is doing, and would like to hear from anyone who has had firsthand experience in processing procedure he uses to thwart government seizures of people, houses, and lands. We were actually doing a lot of, we were saving a lot of homes back then. I just never said that I was doing it. I never told everybody I was doing that, and this is what was going on. It actually worked at the time. Okay, certain things were working at the time, and then they would go on for like 2 or 3 months and then stop. It would stop working. I didn't understand how that process was working at the time. Now, we got a guy named David Clarence that used to go out and put all this crap out. He used to say that the county notary was a fraud. Whole fraud, huge fraud. It's nothing but fraud. It's a scam and everything else. 3 months later, he was using it. I didn't understand the Dutch at the time, what was going on there. I didn't understand what the Masons were doing at the time and how they operated. So the county notary was a huge fraud. And then after I was accused, after 3 months, they started using it. Happened all the time. He's a liar and a thief. I never stolen a thing in my entire life. And never told anybody a lie that I intended to tell people. It doesn't compute, okay? He has been a part of several assemblies. When it became apparent that he was a fraud, he was thrown out. Not true. When I found out that the people that were involved with the assemblies were trying to use it for nefarious acts, I left. Completely opposite. And I'll show you in just a few minutes. The Great Registry is real and is up and running. There you go. It's real and it's up and running. Okay? But this man had nothing to do with it or the Republic. No, matter of fact, I was the one that started the website. So I had everything to do with it. And you're right, I never had anything to do with your 1789 Republic. You're absolutely correct there. He is one of those cowards that puts everything in his wife's name and lives off of her. Not true. Absolutely was not true and still not true. Okay, so they used to do this. There was an anonymous coward. There's no doubt, and there's no question of doubt in my mind, and all federal corporations masquerading as government are the Antichrist beast system. And then he starts coming after me, you know, and blah, 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 blah. Same guy. One was from the United States, one from Canada. Same difference. Okay? So I don't understand how this says that I'm a fraud or a theft. I don't like to make the T-ROH show about myself. I don't like to make the government about myself, because the government is the government and it operates. And there's a lot of people involved with it, and a lot of good people.
Yes, and it has to be about yourself because you're the one that's helping do it. It's also about myself. And this is John Folks. And I've made a lot of mistakes out here myself because at that time I didn't know. But since then I've gone back and correct the record. And anybody that doesn't correct the record, they got problems. Because no man out there can do anything and not make a mistake occasionally. Go ahead, Keith.
All right, bud. It says Keith is still searching for donations 50 to 30. No, that was 2008 to keep up the Great Registry. All right, here's a direct link to Keith Edward Livernois land patent. Yeah, that's my family name, and yeah, there's a link there. Big deal. Because I'll tell you the story about that in just a few minutes. And it says Sam Kennedy and Sovereign Without Subjects, Keith Livernois. See, I used to believe about that a long time ago. It was a scam. I used to believe that we were looked upon by England as sovereigns without subjects. It was an old thing that used to be a belief back then. But that was what 8, 9, 10, about 12, 13 years ago. That's a long time ago, folks. And everybody was going around in the dark. But I and a few other people were the only ones trying to do anything about it.
A lot of information traded hands since then.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of learning since then.
That's right.
I had my suspicions also about Sam Kennedy when I heard him endorsing the Sovereigns Without Subjects course offered by Keith Livernois in Kentucky. I'll tell you what that was, okay? I did a little research on some of the claims that Livernois made, and they were completely bogus and unverified, in fact, outright fabricated. Beware of SWS. I actually purchased this course and spoke to Keith many times on the phone, and he is condescending and arrogant and only wants more money to explain anything you do not understand in this course. Not true. What was going on was, well, first of all, if I was condescending and arrogant, is because I was getting phone calls at 2 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 6 in the morning. People were calling the house 24/7. I had to unhook the phone, unplug the phone so I could get some sleep. Every time I did a seminar, I calculated it. I got a phone call every 3 minutes. And you know what the phone calls were? Hey, man, how you doing? What's going on? I said, I got another phone call coming. Oh, hey, I just want to sit and talk and bullshit, you know? I said, man. And that's when I changed the phone number and stopped giving out the home phone. Because people would call you at all hours of the night. Have no consideration for your time, no consideration for anything. They would just call and say, hey, buddy, what's going on? This is the one sitting BS. It was unbelievable. And then they say Keith's former partner, Laszlo, and you have to understand what was going on back then, who offered nothing in the course audios except was in prison, and after Keith dropped him like a hot potato and recruited another fellow named Ed. Okay, this is what Laszlo was doing. What I found out was, because I didn't understand anything about Yahoo groups at the time. I didn't understand any of that stuff because I didn't understand internet. I hadn't had internet. What I was doing is he would have me, he would send paperwork to me. I would write it. I would type it out. Because remember, back then it was fax, okay? We had dial-up on internet. That was it. So we did a lot through fax and a lot through sending, little discs and stuff through the mail. And a lot of things were done on cassettes from 96 to 2006. That's where I was getting a lot of the information I was getting on little cassettes. So I would send the paperwork to him. I learned how to use email. I learned how to send documents. I didn't really know the Word documents real well. So I would do that, and then I would send it to him. Then he would change it. He would purposely screw it up to where it didn't work. Okay? So when he did that, and I found out about 3 months later that's what he was doing, that's when I dropped him. Because he was ripping people off. He had the bill up to $2,400. I was like, dude, what are you doing? And then I went and went to the Yahoo group that he finally let me on, okay? And I started reading the documents. I didn't write this, Laszlo. I didn't write this stuff. This was changed. None of this stuff is correct. That's not what I wrote. And then it started making sense what he was doing. That's why I dropped him. It wasn't because he went to prison. It's because he was purposely tampering with the paperwork that had already worked before to make it not work so he could charge more money. So I dropped him. Then I partnered up with Ed and found out later on, within 2 months, 2 or 3, 4 months, I guess, is about that time. It's hard to, who cares, 2 through 4 months. Later on, I found out he was running an online escort service. So I said, okay, from that point forward, no more partners. That's it, I'm done. That doesn't look very good, that if I'm involved with somebody, and I even called Ed and I said, don't you think that that's something that you need to tell somebody, that you're running an online escort service? I said, we work with scriptures, we work with Exodus and all these things on the, what was it called, tens, 50s, hundreds, and thousands, and you're running an escort service, Ed? I said, that's enough. I'm out. See ya. So, of course, when I said see ya, Ed starts bashing me because and then he tried to hide the website and everything else that he was running some kind of escort service. Using the information that I was studying and I was researching to be able to run his escort service without any interference. So I said, all right, I'm out. See ya. No more partners. I also believe Keith tried to run a scam on me at a point to someone who would help me with the foreclosure. And this person tried to get me to sign a deed over to him and said he would foreclose instead. All right. That was not me. That was Stelios and a friend of his over in Nevada. There was a woman in a foreclosure. And all I did was transfer the message and said, look, there's an offer from this guy over here that says that what they do is to get people out of foreclosures and out of the problems that they run into. They transfer the house over to their trust, not me, and they do a trustee sale on the courthouse steps. The bank gets their money, all the equity that was in the house, they get their check. Those guys got a fee for doing it, and then that was it. That was the deal. Come to find out that the house that was in question was also owned by her brother, and she was trying to give her brother silver to cut him out of his inheritance. I figured that out, and I started saying it, and then this was what she came up with, okay? When I called Keith up on this, he wrote messages on his group forum claiming I tried to involve him in a scam and sell property that wasn't mine. Absolutely true. It wasn't yours. It says I wasn't trying to sell my property. I was trying to get the bank for fraud and make them prove that the note was it was predatory loan based on lies. No, that's not what you were doing, lady. What you were doing is you were trying to give your brother a little bit of silver to cut him out of the house that he owned, and you couldn't. And then the bank was foreclosing on you. And then what we tried to do, or what I tried to do, was pass this message on to her that Stelios was offering just to go ahead and get him out of the whole mess and also give them their money back. That's all that was going on. But I figured out that she was trying to screw her brother over. And I said, I don't want to be involved in that. So I'm out. Have a good day. So I'm glad some of this stuff is coming up, because now's the time to clear the record on this, because people have trashed all the people that I've caught in some kind of fraud and some kind of crap going on, have trashed the crap out of me because they're trying to hide their fraud. There was another one on Maria Janet, who was charging people $10,000 a month, or bringing in $10,000 a month. Either way, I wasn't a part of that, but I heard about the $10,000 a month. She used to follow me around all over the country when I was doing seminars, and get my information and everything else, any new information I had and all that kind of stuff, and then expected me to do the paperwork for her. She actually filed a complaint against me because I wouldn't do the paperwork anymore. I was never obligated to do her paperwork. She was charging people $2,500 for the paperwork, and then complaining that I wasn't following through with the paperwork that I had never been a part of. That whole contract that she had with her clients, I was not even a part of. She was wanting me to do the paperwork for her for free, and then complained that I wasn't doing it. That's the gall that people have in these Patriot groups. So I moved on. So all these rumors, okay, let's go to Sam Kennedy here. Hold on one second. Getting back to Sam, once Sam started endorsing Keith, I began to wonder, so I tried to sign up for the BIC seminar he was promoting, and the guy by the name of Schultz, I believe, a county notary, and noticed the first thing that the application was full legal name. It also asked for a donation of $900 payable by blank check, but when I requested to make payment in gold, they would not accept it. Donation. They also required, okay, I had nothing to do with that. And when I've only met Sam Kennedy once in my entire life, when I saw his paperwork and saw what he was doing, I distanced myself. I don't want to be involved in that. I was on his radio program twice. But when I met him face to face and then saw his paperwork, I said, no, this stuff is scam. That's a scam. I don't want anything to do with that. He ended up in jail. And his real name was Gene Berkowitz, found from the obituary of his mother, who recently died. If you go back through old Sam Kennedy transcripts, you'll find the date she died. Then you can track down the obits in the city she lived in. Okay? So I distanced myself a lot from Sam Kennedy because I didn't agree with what he was doing. Plus, he expected me after the seminar that time up in New York. He expected me to stay for his what was it called? His lecture the next morning, and I had to go see another guy who was a ex-police officer that was going to tell me some information about the how the internal things of how they work and how they operate, and I wanted to learn more about that. So I just left. And I didn't agree with what the guy was doing anyways. I never contacted the guy after that. I said, that's enough, man. I've seen this guy face to face. I know what's going on here. I don't want anything to do with it. But of course, it gets on the internet and it gets all screwed up. Everybody starts saying that, oh, he's a part of Sam Kennedy and Sam Kennedy's a fraud. And he's going by Gene Berkowitz and blah, blah. So all the conspiracy theories start. Okay? So let's get to the brass tacks of what was going on. There's a thing in Exodus 18 that says it was dealing with Moses. Where I put the connection is the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, has Moses' face with the Ten Commandments and all that on the front of their building. So at the time, I thought that the country was being operated under Mosaic law. So then I started putting things together, and I started saying, wait a minute, you got a district court in the county, okay? You got a, what do you call it? You got a small claims, that kind of thing. And then you got a district court. I think it was county court and district court at the time. And then a appeals court, and then the Supreme Court of the state. So the lower court was Judicial District of Tens, the district court, judicial districts of 50s, the appeals court, that would be the hundreds, and then the Supreme Court would be the thousands. So I made the correlation that they must be working under Exodus 18. And a lot of times at the time, a judge would say, go out and you guys need to go out in the hallway. The district judge would say this and settle this issue. So I said, okay, he's shoving people back out to the Judicial District of Tens to handle this issue. And if they can't solve the problem, he's going to be moved back to the Judicial District of 50s and the judge will solve the issue if they can't solve the problem. That was the logic back then. It was very logical to me. And I found it in the IRS deal that if you're not in one of the United States judicial districts, then you're considered as a resident or as being living within the District of Columbia. So that made sense. What I did not understand at the time was social compact agreements, Constitution of the United States. I didn't know the Constitution was the bogus, all these things that we have been covering in T-ROH for the last year and a half. I didn't know any of that stuff at the time. So I said, well, if I'm in the Judicial District of Tens within the United States, these property taxes don't apply. Because I'm not in the District of Columbia. Because back then people thought that everybody's person was in the District of Columbia and you were just being directly taxed by Congress from the corporation that was created in 1868. This was the theory, okay? So that's how we were operating. So that's the course he's talking about when he's talking about the course. And I would explain all this other stuff. And I found a bunch of evidence to the fact and everything else. at the time, not really realizing I was kind of misreading it to a certain extent. I still could be true. I mean, I still could be right. But either way, I wasn't paying taxes on my property at the time. Now, the property was in a trust. What I found out in 2009, and I think it was around June or July, August in that area, that my dad was paying the taxes the whole time and he didn't tell me. So I said, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. I felt like total shit for 3 months because it was never put to the test. I didn't know the man was doing that. And yeah, the taxes were like, well, $187 a year, but it was cheap. But I did not know at the time. So I said, all right. And by the way, I got a real manipulating dad. You got to realize that. So what I did is that's when I started looking into land patents. And I told everybody, look, man, I didn't realize my dad was doing this. I am so sorry. I did not mean to lead anybody astray. I did not mean to do anything like that. I said, I thought that this was working, and I thought it was right at the time. So that's when the land patent thing came in and the metes and bounds and everything else of the United States of America. And everybody else knows the history from that point forward, when the original General Post Office was claimed and all this other stuff. My whole direction was completely changed. There was no more onesteward.org thing. There was no more sovereigns without subjects. There was no more of that crap. Because everybody back then was being led down 50,000 roads. And the CIA had a lot to do with it. But when I found out it was wrong, I fixed it. I did not defend it. And I still think the tens, fifties, hundreds, and thousands has something to do with the way that the United States operates. But as of now, it's none about business, and I don't care. So excuse me for being a human being. And I still have the Great Registry, and a lot of the things that we did back then, I still bring forward today into this government and have it all corrected and have it working correctly, the way it's supposed to be working, in accordance with the law of nations and everything else. So to bring all this stuff up, all right, this is what happened. On December 17th, 2010, my whole life got turned upside down because of these bullshit rumors. I had people calling, I had troopers calling me, state troopers calling me sovereign citizen. I didn't know at the time what sovereign citizen was. I didn't know anything about SPLC. My whole life just turned upside down. And I had 15 guns on me. They put me in the car. I ended up going to the jail, the detention center at the time, because they just put a brand new jail in. And then they did an interview for like an hour. And the very cop that arrested me looked at me and he says, "You are nothing like your reputation is, or all these rumors are around you." He says, "You're nothing like it." I said, "I know." I said, "I don't know where these are coming from." And what I figured out later, it was coming from the Masonic lodges. Masons were messing with me. But the man said to me right there, he says, "You're nothing like, I thought you would be completely different." And then a couple of months later, I said, man, they tried to get me again when I had freaking cops all around the house and a damn SWAT team down the road and all this other crap. And I just walked myself right up and down the driveway. Hey guys, how you doing? All the other sheriffs and stuff were looking at him like, oh my God, this is crazy. We spent all this money for this. And he apologized to me at least 9 times. I said, dude, you have ruined my life. I said, what the hell's the matter with you? I'm sorry, Keith. I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to do this. He says, I'm just the lowest on the totem pole, trying to get out of the liability. Because the first thing he accused me of, he says, you want to kill my family. I said, I don't know who the hell you are. And I said, I don't know where your wife or children are. And I said, I don't want to know. So what the hell are you talking about wanting to kill your family? Because that's what SPLC was accusing people of doing. So, folks, anything you see on the internet is twisted into something that it's not by people that were doing the wrong thing, that were ripping people off. They got their ass caught. I caught them doing it. I didn't want anything to do with it. And then they got to slam me on the internet to try to hide their fraud. Anything you want to add, John?
No, sir, not right. You're doing fine. Just if you hadn't caught up to where I can't join in yet. I didn't join in until 2011. But now I made a lot of the same mistakes that you were making because I didn't know back then what I know now. And back then I didn't know I was making those mistakes. The only reason I knew it because they weren't panning out in the court the way they were supposed to. The courts themselves don't follow the law, therefore they don't listen to the law. And that's a lot of the mistakes I was making. I was trying to use the law in their court that they don't allow. Go ahead.
Right, or you didn't have the authority to use.
Yes.
You weren't a part of the social compact. You didn't have a nationality. You didn't have any of this stuff. So you really didn't have the authority. I didn't have the authority to do some of the stuff I was doing back then, and I didn't know I didn't.
Well, that was me. I didn't know I was doing something wrong according to their rules and regulations. And they're not laws because it's not a court, really. Anytime it's got a Dun and Bradstreet number and traded on the stock market, it's not a true judicial court.
Right. There's a problem there. Okay.
Yes,
and we acknowledge that. We acknowledge that problem. You're right. Yeah, we're definitely right about that. And so what I'm trying to tell folks is this. There were a lot of things that happened between 2006 and 2009. And these were all learning pains. These were things that we were going through, that we were actually doing something about, not just sitting back and going, well, I don't want to not do anything, and then criticize the people that were trying to do something. Okay, a lot of people said that Bill Cooper, back in the day, yeah, he's a fraud, he's a scam, and all this other BS, but comes to find out the guy was a decent guy. He was a very decent man. He didn't seem to be committing any fraud. He wasn't hurting anybody. And if you're doing seminars, you're definitely not going to be going there for free. That shit costs money. You have to rent the room in the hotel. You got to rent the convention room, the conference room. You got to rent all that stuff. You got to pay for it. It's not like anybody was getting rich. You got to travel there. You got to travel back and all this other kind of junk. So it's not like anybody was trying to rip anybody off. Nobody intended on doing it. So I thought, since all this stuff, and since my dad had screwed me over and what I was doing, he was butting in my business again, okay, trying to tell him, stay the hell out of it. I thought that if I fixed the the land patents and did them correctly, that I would make up for what had happened. It wasn't my fault, but I felt I should make that up to people that I genuinely cared about at the time.
But you know, Keith, even as dumb as I was back then, and as bad as the courts were then, and they still are today, they actually tried to help me. Because in '96, when I went into court, I had taken one document at a time and canceled that particular contract. Not as a group under the Council of Torah at that time, because I didn't know it existed. But I took my driver's license, got rid of it, birth certificate, each document separate is the way I did it then. Well, in '96, when I went to court up there, they threatened me with deportation because I didn't have any contracts with them. No part of that. But I also got back from, Janet Reno at that time was Secretary of State of the United States. Wrote me a letter, says, make sure you have a country that will take you before you give up your citizenship here. They were trying to actually help me to where I wouldn't be running in limbo without a country. That way I'd be up for grabs if anybody wanted to slave and there's nothing I can do about it. Okay, a little further down the line then, Colin Rice, she wrote me the same letter back to make sure I had a country that would take me before I got out of the one I was in. So there's two occasions they actually tried to help me retain my citizenship until I had someplace to go. As soon as I found someplace to go, I actually did it the second time, and that was in 2007, I think it was, when I did it the second time, and used a process similar to your Council of Torah. But it was written different, and it was put out by a different person.
Right, because somebody took that and then screwed it up.
Didn't really screw it up. It was instead of it as a group, it was still done one document at a time. So it was basically the Council of Torah, but it was all presented at one time.
Right, and today people would never even know what a Council of Torah Foreign Instruments is.
That's correct. And back then in '96, the clerk of the court here in Marion County, Florida, actually took my documents and sent them to California. And when I got that set of documents back to the house, it was included a shipping envelope where it had gone to California and one shipping envelope where it came back. That's the reason I know it went to California. Now, who the people were out there, I have no idea. But it's some higher authority than the county and the state here in Florida.
Wasn't it some Air Force base?
It was in Southern California. I don't remember whether it was Dago or San Francisco, but it was a law firm out there that they sent it to. It wasn't military, it was a law firm. And when that came back from there, I've had very little trouble with the court since then.
Right. There were people back then between 2006 and 2009, man, they were stealing stuff from me left and right. I mean, and then they would come back and there was one document that a guy gave to me that I fixed and sent it back out. I said, here, you just do it this way. And it started working. Like 10 different foreclosures were going away. And then when it started working, I got accused of stealing it. I was like, no, I'm not even charging for it here. It's because they wanted to get it and then charge for it, which I found out later, they were trying to charge $2,500 a pop for it. So they would accuse me of stealing it when I just fixed it. That's all I did. And every time it started working, they would try to take it and then try to charge money for it. And that was going on a lot back then. It was really bad. It was really bad in those days. And this was the height of the, New World Order power. They had all their deception in place. Nobody knew what was going on. I didn't even know about the 3-city-state empire at the time. I didn't know any of that stuff.
Biggest thing I knew back then is we used registered mailing. Cost $21 every time you put something in the mail.
Oh my God, it was expensive as hell. My phone bill was $4.50 a month. Yep. And no, my wife didn't pay it. I did.
My wife didn't pay the $21 a package either for mailing.
Oh my God, it was expensive, man, because people would have me call them or ask me to call them, and then they would sit there and talk forever and ever. I'm going, dude, it's 25 cents a minute here. Let's go. And it was expensive at the time because I didn't have a cell phone. I did have a beeper system. That's how I got my business done. It was beepers. Then I'd call them back. That's how we did it back then. But I was years behind, because I just dropped out of the system type deal. But during that 10 years, I didn't know my dad was paying the stupid thing. He didn't say anything to me. Nobody said a word. So I thought, okay, cool. This is working. So I'll share this with others in 2006. That's what I was doing. Then 2.5 years later, people had never heard any of that information before at the time. We were making video or audios and stuff like that. They were being recorded. And I literally thought that's what was going on. Okay, but you got to understand something, folks. This was something that, in my own humble opinion, had to happen. Because if it didn't happen, I would have never gone on to discover the reign of the heavens. And I would never have gone on to have a bunch of people with me that we could put the government back together and all this other stuff. We know a whole lot more now than we did then. We know a whole lot more because we didn't even really know when we were forming the Yisrael nation for that short period of time. I had to form that in order to understand what the Bible was saying, in order to see it, to see what was going on in the scriptures. It was a learning process. And I was sharing what I was learning. And I was sharing my research and say, hey, look over here, look over there. And I was just kept sharing that. Well, when I was sharing it, people were taking it and they were coming up with these processes and trying to sell it. When I did the Cancelatura Foreign Instruments, 3 weeks later, I had to make a phone call to a guy in Arizona, or it was either New Mexico or Arizona. I can't remember which, but because it was a long time ago. And I started talking to him and I said, yeah, I heard you have a Cancelatura Foreign Instruments. And they said, yeah, that's $300. And so I told him, I said, look, I'm the one that wrote that thing. I'd appreciate if you stopped selling it. That was for free. That was for anybody that wanted to use it. I said, I put that out there for free. They were selling it for $300. And I think they stopped selling it. I'm not sure. But see, back then you couldn't really, track it.
Yes. And the modified copy I got of it was spread out. That was supposed to have been put out by a grandson of Lewis McFadden, the old senator.
Yeah.
And that's where they claim it came from.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
It's unbelievable the lies that have been happening and going out. I'm going to see if I can actually find the original copy. I'll show people the original copy if I can find it.
Okay, and I got company coming, so.
All right. And I have found it. And I marked out some things in it. Okay, here it is. This was the original copy. And which is what sparked the Cancelatura of Foreign Instruments Act within this government. And it came into, see, I used to believe all this stuff. I used to believe the Kentucky Republic. I didn't use the state of Kentucky, screwed up there. I put these United States of America, not knowing that there wasn't a constitution there. I put in our one Supreme Court, general delivery, all that stuff. And here it is, Cancelatura of Foreign Instruments. It was 10 pages long. And it took another friend of mine a year to fully understand what they had done, what was written in this document. There's 10 pages of it. Not for retrial information only, page 1 of 8. There were 8 pages of the original. Then I had 3 pages, so 8, 9, 10, 11. There's 11 pages. There's a writ of prohibition, writ of, this, that, and the other thing. I can't remember the rest of it. But it talked about voting certificate, all certificate of title. This was done in 1996, guys. And here it is, received, Michigan Department of Health. They clicked it received or stamped it received and sent it. It was the office of the registrar and sent it back to me. I used to do the sui juris crap. I used to do all that stuff. And what I'm telling you, and the reason why we're going after these guru groups is they have not changed in 10 years, 12 years. They haven't changed a thing. They keep doing the same stupid stuff.
They're doing right now, the guru groups out there doing right now the same stuff that I started walking away from in 94, 5, and 6. I walked away from most of what they're doing right now back then. Because that's when I went through what they call the common law court, school.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started learning what was going on, is when I started walking away from the biggest majority of the guru stuff.
Well,
go ahead.
I read the common law lien. It was given to me. I read it and I go, I ain't doing this, man. This is crazy. In other words, liening somebody. I said, nah, it just did not feel right. Something was wrong with that. I didn't get involved with it. I sidestepped a lot of the crap that people are trying to do today because I said it's just not right. It's not right to do that kind of thing.
No, it isn't. But the common law lien, there's nothing wrong with it if it's used correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a solid foundation when you record it correctly. And some of those that I know of are still standing since 1982.
Right, but this is not a lien against a judge, folks.
No, sir. You
This
do
is not
not
a lien
ever
against a lawyer. This is not a lien against a cop. Common law liens were something completely different. It was changed by people in the Patriot guru groups to use as a weapon.
I have actually got 5 of those liens, Keith. 3 of them are attack liens where you put it on other people's property, and 2 of them are actually protection liens. And I only use 1 of the protection liens today. That's to protect my own property. I never put it on anybody's property but my own. And it has to be done correctly and presented in a correct manner for recording. And I'm not going to go into the procedures right now because everybody out there will be wanting to do it and screw it up again. And I've got 3 of them screwed up right here, right now, that I tried to help somebody else put on their own property. And one of them went down and even recorded it wrong.
I can't believe you recorded it, but
Yep.
okay. And I was called, ever since I would bring up Yahweh and Yahushua, I was always called a cult group. It's a cult-like group. Any reference to the Bible was always labeled as a cult back then. And that crap stopped last year or 2 years ago when the temple was known, and then there was a constitution for the temple and all that. That crap stopped. because there was never a cult at all. There was never a cult-like group of followers working with this con artist and their peers. It's not a con artist. That was the information we had at the time. And I was just sharing research most of the time. And people were taking it and trying to sell it. We learned a lot since then. We put copyrights on things now. And we don't release certain documents because we know somebody will try to grab it and sell it. There's actually a lot of documents we don't release. We don't tell anybody about. We don't say anything about. Because they try to sell it. They'll look at it, they'll change it 25% and try to sell it. With the same crap that was going on since the 70s.
Some of them don't even change anything. They just take it like it is and change the verbiage in it to suit the situation, and that's it.
Yeah, and this Bioki guy, or whatever his name is, Steve.
Yep.
It says, here's what another guy says. It says, I do remember you were helping him with his property taxes. But you did try to help him. And I had nothing but good to say about that guy. I thought Steve was great. He was a great guy. He did really well as the chairman for the ANU. And then all of a sudden he goes off in left field and freaks out, and he's talking all this crap. I never yelled at that guy, never talked to him in a harsh manner. I've always had respect for him, treated him right. Thought he was a decent guy. But turns out he's just another freaking, what I call opportunist, trying to get his 15 minutes of fame or whatever the hell he's doing. You know, we've been doing this for a long time. I've been doing this for very least 25 years, trying to look for a way that everybody can get their freedom and things like that. I never really had my own personal interest at heart to a certain extent, because, you know, I was trying, and if I could help others, I would do that. Okay, so that's kind of how it works. But the way that they twist things around and turn things from what we're doing today, no one called sovereigns freaking terrorists. Matter of fact, in the next T-ROH, you're going to see a whole different T-ROH show, because I'm going to turn this around. But these groups, yeah, they are going the wrong way, and they are charging people a lot of money for nothing.
Actually, what they're doing is they're paying people to put them in jail with incorrect paperwork.
Yeah.
And as far as time is concerned, my daddy gave me orders in the winter of 1982-83 to do something about it, because these incorporated companies out there were ruining our country. Because we're losing our country to that. When the truck went by with INC on the side of it. And I've been at it ever since. I hope I'm making a little bit of headway.
Oh, we're making a lot of headway. There's a lot of really cool stuff coming up that we're headed towards and doing and everything else, and that will hopefully benefit as many people as we could possibly benefit.
Yes, and how can they say we're doing something wrong when all we're doing is going into the archives, pulling out the records, and publishing the records themselves as proof of what somebody else is doing. We're just exposing the fraud out there that somebody else is putting on the people. They can't say anything about it because it's their paper. Go ahead, Keith.
Well, this Steve guy, you know, I can't even say I even never knew him because of what he's turned into. He's become vindictive, evil, and doing some mean stuff to people and causing all kinds of crap. He never came to me personally and asked, hey, Keith, can you explain some of this stuff? I would have said the same exact thing. Yeah, I saw Sam Kennedy once and the whole deal. I would have explained to him everything. I've been perfectly open about everything that happened at the time. And back in the day, when they wanted to promote somebody else, they would trash me and promote them. That's how they used to do their seminars. They would trash everybody, and this individual had the answer. There was one lady that was selling the paperwork that we were doing for $25,000. So in order to hide all that and hide all that thieving going on, they would trash you. That's how they operated back then.
They haven't changed.
Not much, no. Well, there's not a lot of seminars going on.
Not much.
Because a lot of things are being, the internet kind of changed that. You didn't have to go to hotels and go to conference calls and all that kind of thing.
They're still holding those seminars, though. Look at Talk Show and all these other free talk shows that's going on.
Right.
They're still holding their seminars, just in a different manner.
So, just so everybody knows, anything that comes up, ask me. I'll tell you. I'm not going to lie to you about it. It's right there. You know, the guy's sitting there calling me a scam artist, but he's saying the Great Registry is valid. Come on, read between the lines there on what's really happening. And after Laszlo and Ed, no more partners. I was done with that. I said, no, man. I said, this isn't going to happen. Because these guys are doing stuff that I don't want to be involved with. But see, back then, you didn't have the internet today where you could replace it real quick and tell people what was going on, like we can do with the T-ROH here on the 12th special edition. We weren't able to overcome it real quick. Today we can. And that's what we're doing here. So just because somebody believes in the Most High doesn't make it a cult. Number one. Number two, understand that information and all that came out was 13, 14 years ago, 12 years ago, however long it was. That was a long time ago.
And I can grant you, I have sorted a lot of papers in the last 13 years.
Yeah, and if someone makes mistakes or is wrong or doesn't have all the proper information, and they turn around and they fix it and get the right information and then put that out there, that's not intent to rip people off.
Keith, there is no sin to make a mistake. The sin becomes a sin when they refuse to correct it. Because anybody out there does anything, they're going to make a mistake sooner or later. And when they make a mistake, as soon as they find it out, they correct it, then they have done no wrong in my book. Now, that's my personal opinion of it. Go ahead.
Right. If Pantera fixed their stuff, wouldn't say a word about it. Great. Wonderful. We'll even do a show about it. Hey, they fixed it. If Eucadia, who's been trying to basically, they tried to put information out there on the comment section to sell their foundation. If they fix their stuff, quit operating as an ecclesia and to cover the fact that they're basically a political group, when all they got to do is create a political party and fix it. And then they can do political stuff. There's no reason to hide it under ecclesia, okay? But they try to hijack the freaking comment section and start using it as an advertisement for their foundation on the last show. So I got rid of it. I knew what they were doing. I said, man, you guys have no shame. Unbelievable. If they want to fix things politically, just start a political party. You don't have to hide it under ecclesia.
In fact, is ecclesia at that point becomes their political party.
Yeah.
Whether they realize it or not.
Right. And which means is that's a fraud. You can't do that.
That's right.
So I left. I don't get along with people like that. I don't get along with people that, of the people I dealt with between 2006 and 2009. I don't get along with them because when you show what they're doing is incorrect, or you show them, here, you can't do this, man, this is a fraud, they don't fix it. They start trashing you. Or you're a fraud, you're this. They start blaming you for what they're doing. When all you're trying to do is say, look, you can't do it this way. You got to do it this way, or fix it, or no, we can't do it. You know, that's just unfair as hell. You don't do that. Okay. Meaning you don't go out and purposely fudge paperwork and then turn around and try to raise prices on stuff. You don't do that. That's wrong. You don't cause a conflict to make more money. That's wrong. You don't do all those things that these people were doing. And that's why I don't talk to them anymore. I want nothing to do with them, because still today, they still won't change their ways. So I had enough. Have a good day. And when I did that, trash, he's screwed, he's this, they blaming me for everything they're doing. And that's called guilt by association. That would be the same as a guy just steals or robs a store. I happen to be walking in a parking lot. He walks by me and says, hey, man, how you doing? And starts shaking my hand. Now, all of a sudden, I'm guilty of him robbing the store? Or I was a part of it? It's a conspiracy? That's utterly ridiculous. And Steve is a grown man, and he knows better than what he's doing. That boy's filled with hate, ego, everything in the world. He was treated with nothing but respect. Nobody said a word against that man. Nobody said anything. He joined with Johnson. For what reason? Nothing. Nobody did anything to that man. And he still didn't come to me and ask me these questions before he starts plastering it all over Facebook and trying to slander. So for the record and the international record, all the claims are valid. The government of the United States of America is absolutely valid. It is the original 1781, and the General Post Office is the original General Post Office 1775. Get over it. We got there before you did. Boo-hoo. And we had enough discipline and self-respect and everything else that it took to turn this thing into something that was real and valid.
And guess what, folks? Everything we have done is basically free. All you have to pay is the publication and what have you to get your document recorded.
All the research out there and everything, all free. It's all sitting on the National Great Registry, scribed, all the things that we did.
36 years, research, time, money, expenditures, all free gratis. All you have to do is come claim it.
And folks, since it seems like my personal life is coming involved in here, which I don't like, okay, because that's my personal life. I could have, back in 1992, 93, in that area, can't remember the exact date, when I was going in and wallpapering a man's kitchen, and he showed me a document from the IRS when he had removed all his signatures from everything he had ever signed that he no longer had to file. You know what I could have done? I could have ignored that, moved on with wallpapering, and become a millionaire on the hotel circuit. But I chose not to. I chose not to ignore that document. I chose not to ignore what was going on, because something in my own head and something in my own heart, when I looked at that and I saw that document, I said, I knew something was wrong with that. I knew something was wrong with that. I didn't know what it was. Something always bothered me about doing that, about filling out 1040s and doing, you know, employer-employee taxes and stuff like that. I said, there's something wrong. And my own conscience drove me to go forward.
Yeah, and you'd think, Keith, after being locked up 7 times, that I'd actually hate the courts. I don't hate the courts. I don't hate the judges. I, I don't particularly like the procedures they use because they're violating their own laws. But that's their prerogative. They're the ones going to have to answer for it later on.
Right. And then the next T-ROH show, we're going to address that. We're going to address the Doucette deal. We're going to address all that. I have that show planned out, and we'll bring it out in the 74th broadcast of the T-ROH show. So, Steve, directly to you. Stop your BS. Stop your lying and your slander. Nobody hurt you, and nobody did anything wrong to you. Nobody has tortured you in any way. You're the aggressor here. Nobody even said anything about your reputation. Nothing. You did this. And only you. And you're going to pay for that, man. That's called natural law. What comes around goes around. We don't have to do a thing. All we got to do is sit back and watch. You're attacking good people that work their butts off to get you your nationality that you had nothing to do with, that didn't go through 9 months of gang stalking, ruining your life, ruining your business. Nothing. To get what we have today. All you had to do, if you anything, just say thank you and move on. Nobody asked anything from you. Instead, your heart is filled with hatred, evil, disgust over yourself. You're the one that violated your oath to the ANU. You're the one that has done all of it. And if anybody has any questions, just email me or put it on a comment and I'll answer the question on anything that happened back in those days. And I'll tell you my side of the story, because my side of the story has never been published. There's always people just putting bashing crap on the internet and not thinking a thing about it as to how that would hurt somebody or what would happen. There was no facts involved, no truth to it, nothing. It's just attack, attack, attack. And you wonder why people are still slaves. We weren't attacking Pantera. We weren't attacking Anna. We weren't attacking any of these people. All we were doing is saying in the Michigan Assembly, we were saying this is where your problems are. And we've been trying to get a hold of you for 6 years. And with your prejudice and your hatred, you ignored everything. So I said, okay, let's show the rest of the world how messed up this is. Maybe they'll listen then and get it corrected. But like little children, you don't read between the lines.
It is kind of hard to get people to admit they made a mistake, Keith.
Yeah, it is.
It's only human nature. No one wants to admit they made a mistake.
Well, if I've made a mistake, I've even showed people I've made a mistake. I fix it and move on. No one's perfect in this world, folks. No one.
That's correct.
Everybody's going to screw up. Just fix it.
There's some mistakes I made out there there's no fixing, but they're still there. And if anybody asks, I'll admit that, yes, I happened. I got nothing to hide, and I'm not ashamed of my name. I put my correct name on the paperwork. I don't use aliases. I try to keep everything up and above board to where you can look at it, it's transparent. You can see all the way through it.
Yeah, we all use our real names.
That's right.
All of us use our real names. We don't use any aliases. We didn't do like Sam Kennedy does and change his name for a stage name. Nothing. Hell, freaking people in Hollywood can't say that. They don't
No,
use their real names.
that is a real name, but it's a trade name.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a company name. When they go home, they use their real name. But anytime you use an alias for a signature, the document you apply it to is null and void at that time because it has no authority by signature. I, you
I
can
used
look
to
up.
sign things Keith Edward all the time.
Yep,
And all I did to fix that and correct it was do a chain of title, connecting Keith Edward Living Way to Keith Edward and all that. That's all I did. You
that's
just fix
correct.
it and publish it, and it's done. It's on
Well,
script.
back in the day when you started using your first and second and dropping the family name, that was accepted back then. Once I realized that that was not my entire name, I started using my back name also, my family name. That is my family name, and I'm not ashamed of it.
Yeah, I'm not ashamed to be in a living way. I'm not ashamed of anything that I've done in the past. I'm not ashamed of anything. I can lay anything that I've done right at the foot of the Most High. I have no, whatever I've done, I done. And I did. That's it.
I've tried to do it in such a way, knowing that one day he'll open the book and it'll be at his feet and he can look at it.
Yeah.
And if you don't look at it that way, you're going to get in trouble anyway.
And by the way, Steve, that's the only judge that matters.
That's correct. And in Judgment Day, there's not going to be no back talk. There's not going to be any cross talk. There won't be any hiding anything, because it'll all be in the book of records. And if you think you can dodge that book of records, you got
Good,
my permission to do so.
good luck.
Good luck.
Thanks for listening to the 12th broadcast or special edition of the T-ROH show. We will talk to you next week. We're going to talk about the Doucette issue, and we're going to talk about some other things that people don't know about once again. And we'll show you the facts, and we'll show you what's going on. And hopefully it will begin to turn things around with all these judgmental assholes in this country. And I'm talking both sides, because see, the Patriot guru groups, never said sovereigns, Patriot guru groups, and the American Bar Association and the judges there, they're literally both wrong. And we'll bring that out. You're being manipulated by a third party, and not this third party. You're being manipulated by somebody else that is getting both of you to fight. We'll see you next week.